The sky above New Geneva Station was calm. Far below, Earth spun in blue and white silence. Inside the Great Hall of the United Nations Orbital Assembly, hundreds of delegates sat in tight rows, watching a large central holodome. The topic today was peace. Or war. It was always both. Humanity had just survived a bloody 3-year war with the Valari Dominion, an alien empire older than Earth's oldest ruins. Their ships were bigger, their weapons cruel, but humanity didn't break. They pushed back with grit, sacrifice, and stubborn will. Now both sides were tired. Talks had begun. Commander Elias Rourke stood quietly near the back of the hall. He didn't wear a suit like the diplomats. He wore his battle-worn fleet uniform, medals polished but chest tight with unease. He didn't belong here. But President Sarah Keene wanted him present. "In case things go wrong," she'd said with a hard smile. The lights dimmed. Everyone turned to the dome. A soft chime rang out. Then, she appeared. A massive, shimmering figure filled the dome. She stood over 10 feet tall in her true form, with gleaming silver skin, crowned by sharp, curling horns like a crown of stars. Her eyes glowed violet, unreadable. This was Queen Shirentha, ruler of the Valari Dominion. She did not smile. "Humans of Earth." Her voice echoed in every ear, not through sound, but thought. It was cold, sharp, royal. "You have fought well. You have suffered well. You have survived, which many species do not. Now, a new offer." Everyone leaned forward. "If you want peace," she continued, "then one of your kind must marry me." Gasps filled the room. A few diplomats stood in shock. One man dropped his datapad. Elias frowned. He thought he misheard. But no, the message was clear. The Queen went on. "Our traditions are sacred. War ends with union. Dominion is sealed. With blood and peace, with bonding. You will choose a representative. A strong one, a clever one. One worthy of becoming consort to the crown." The projection flickered, then faded. Silence, then chaos. "She's joking, right?" someone whispered. "This must be a test." "No way, this violates every treaty." President Keene stood calmly and looked around. "Sit down," she ordered. "We discuss before we panic." Hours later, behind closed doors, the debate grew hotter. "We can't allow this," snapped Admiral Hugh, chief of Earthfleet. "Marrying a hostile alien leader? This is madness." "She's offering peace," said Foreign Minister Delora Kane. "You'd rather send our fleets back into war?" "It could be a trap," Elias finally spoke. "Or maybe it's something else." All eyes turned to him. "Queen Shirentha isn't human," he said. "Her ways aren't ours. I fought her armies. I studied her tactics. She doesn't bluff. This is real." Keene narrowed her eyes. "You sound like you believe her." "I believe she sees us as equals now," Elias replied. "And that scares her court. Maybe she's trying to change something deeper." A long pause. Then Keene asked quietly, "Would you do it, Commander? If the Council agrees?" Elias hesitated. "I didn't survive the war to become someone's husband. But would you do it to stop another one?" He looked down, his hands clenched. He thought of the cities lost, the soldiers buried, the kids who'd never come home. "If it keeps Earth safe," he said, "I'll do it." The next day, the news broke. Humanity's hero to wed alien queen, peace talks take shocking turn. The headlines blazed across every screen, every city. Protests erupted. Some called Elias a traitor. Others called him a savior. Most were just confused. Why marriage? Why him? A live broadcast was arranged. Elias stood before the cameras, uncomfortable in a new dark suit. "I don't understand Queen Shirentha's ways," he said calmly. "But I understand peace is better than death. I didn't ask for this, but if it's what stops more war, I'll go. Not as a servant, not as a prize, but as a human, representing all of us." The world listened. Some cheered, some wept, many just waited. A week later, The ship Unity lifted off from Earth, carrying Elias and a small team of diplomats. Their destination, Valari Prime, the throne world of an empire that once tried to crush them. Elias stared out the window as Earth faded behind them. He didn't feel like a groom. He felt like a weapon wrapped in silk. The ship Unity floated through deep space like a quiet arrow. Inside, Commander Elias Rourke sat alone in his chamber, staring at the stars outside. They were nearing Valari space. Every hour the air felt heavier. The others on board, diplomats, advisors, a medic, kept their distance. Elias wasn't just their guard or their leader now. He was the one going to marry an alien queen. Some of them looked at him with pity. Others, with fear. He didn't blame them. The door buzzed. Elias turned. Enter. Dr. Mara Lynn stepped, in holding a small scanner. Time for a final checkup before arrival. Elias nodded. She ran the scanner over his head, neck, arms. Your heart rate's high, she said gently. Wouldn't yours be? She gave a tired smile. Fair point. After a pause, she asked, Do you trust her, Queen Zirentha? Elias didn't answer at first. Then he said, No, but I respect her. Mara nodded. Just be careful. We don't know how Valari bonds work. Psychics, hive minds, mating. Rituals. You could be walking into a mental trap. Elias stood. Then I'll walk in with eyes open. Valari Prime was unlike any world humanity had seen. From orbit, it looked like a glowing web. Thousands of silver towers stretched across the dark surface like roots of a metal tree. Giant energy veins pulsed with blue light. Swarms of sky beasts circled the clouds, glowing faintly in the alien sun. As Unity approached the capital spire, Elias stood at the viewing window with his team. No one spoke. A voice came through the ship's comms. This is Royal Spire Control. Earth Envoy. Prepare for Queen's welcome. Elias adjusted his collar and gave one last nod to the others. Time to meet the bride. The landing platform was silent. Hundreds of Valari warriors stood in silver armor, faces hidden behind curved masks. At the center stood Queen Zirentha, wearing a long cloak of black feathers and light. Elias stepped forward. The moment he reached her, she spoke, in his mind. You came. That is strength. He didn't flinch. You asked. That is power. Her lips curved slightly. She offered her arm. Walk with me. He took it. Inside the throne chamber, Elias saw a hall of crystal and flame. The walls shimmered with energy. Strange symbols floated in the air. Every step echoed. It felt more like a living thing than a building. They stopped before a raised platform. This is the seat of Unity, she said. All those who enter it are tested. Tested how? With truth. Before he could answer, the floor lit up. A beam of light struck his chest, not burning, but deep. Suddenly, Elias wasn't in the room anymore. He stood in a battlefield. Smoke, fire, screams. It was one of the war's worst days. His old team, his captain, the ambush, the loss. He fell to his knees. No, not this again. A voice, hers, whispered inside his head. Do you carry guilt? Yes, he whispered. Do you carry hate? Yes. Do you carry love? Elias looked up. He saw his captain's face, dying. Then the Valari soldier who spared his life when she didn't have to. Yes, he said again. The vision faded. He was back in the hall, breathing hard. Queen Zirentha stood over him. You passed. What was that? A trial of unity. A memory test. We do not bond with lies. You could have warned. Me, he muttered. If I had, you would have prepared answers. That is not truth. Later, Elias was taken to guest chambers, carved from blue stone and humming softly. He sat on the bed, rubbing his face. His mind still hurt from the test. A soft knock came. The door opened, and a new figure entered. She was Valari, younger, but wore no armor. Her eyes were kind. "I am Lysera, court translator, Queen's voice among the lowborn." "I understand her fine," Elias said. "Yes, but you don't understand her court." Elias raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "There are nobles who hate you," she said simply. "They think humans are too wild, too weak. Some will try to stop this union. Let them try," he said. Lysera smiled, spoken like a true warrior. "But you are not just a warrior anymore. You must become part diplomat, part husband." Elias gave a tired laugh. That might be harder than war. That night, Elias walked through the Queen's private garden. Strange glowing trees curved toward the stars. Soft music played from hidden crystals. Queen Zerentha waited beside a pond of light. This garden was grown during the First War of Ascension. She said, "My ancestors planted it with the blood of enemies." Elias stood beside her. "You could have ended this war with fire. Why marriage?" She turned, eyes glowing. "Because peace is stronger when it is personal." He met her gaze. "Is this really peace? Or are you trying to absorb us into your empire?" "I offer you a seat beside me, not beneath me." Elias studied her face. It wasn't easy to read, but he saw something real in her words. Pride, pain, hope. Then she added, "You do not have to love me, but you must walk with me." Elias nodded slowly. "I can do that." Back in his chamber, Elias received a message from EarthGov. Alert. Our intelligence reports unknown movements in the outer colonies. Some Valari ships may not follow the Queen's orders. Be cautious. You are not safe yet. He sighed. Nothing was ever simple. Peace was a battlefield too. End of part 2. Let me know when you're ready for part 3, or if you want to tweak the pacing, add more action or romance, or insert flashbacks to deepen Elias's backstory. You said, "Part 3 1000 words ka lekho, or interesting hona chahiye or third-person style ma lekhni ha." Or simple basic English ka chat GPT said, "Here is part 3 of the story, written in simple and engaging English, around 1000 words, third-person style, part 3. Shadows of War, the peace they dread." The great halls of Valari Prime were cold, silent, and filled with secrets. Commander Elias Rourke walked through them like a shadow. Days had passed since the trial of Unity. Every morning he trained with Valari guards. Every evening he met with Queen Zerentha. They talked about peace, war, and what might come after. But something wasn't right. He could feel it in the air. One night after a long meeting, Elias returned to his room and found a strange mark on his door. It was small, a red symbol, like a thorn twisting around a star. He frowned. "Lysera," he called. The translator appeared quickly. "Do you know what this means?" he asked, pointing to the mark. Lysera's eyes widened. She stepped back. "It is a warning." "From who?" "The Thorn Circle. Old Valari nobles. They hate the Queen's idea of peace with humans. They believe our bond with you is a disgrace." Elias folded his arms. "Why warn me? To scare you, or to tell you they're watching?" He looked around the hallway. "Let them watch. But if they try something, I won't just watch." Back on Earth, alarms were also ringing. In the EarthGov Command Center, President Keen stood before a giant screen. Admiral Hu pointed at a map of the outer colonies. 4 Valari ships entered human space without orders from their queen, he said. They claim they're protecting Valari honor. Keen frowned. "Are they attacking?" "Not yet. But they're surrounding our mining stations in the Rho system. Send a warning. Tell them if they make one wrong move, Earthfleet will respond." "And Rourke?" the Admiral asked. "He could be in danger too." Keen stared at the screen for a long moment. "If Queen Zerentha cannot control her own people, this marriage means nothing." Back on Valari Prime, Queen Xerentha stood before her royal mirror, a pool of dark liquid that showed more than just reflections. She saw her court behind her whispering. She saw the future stretching like broken glass. She knew some of her people wanted war, others wanted her dead. But only one thing could change them: Elias. That evening, a grand feast was held in the Hall of Stars. Hundreds of Valari nobles gathered to witness the beginning of the Binding Week, 7 days before the official union. It was tradition, filled with rituals. Elias entered in formal Valari robes, silver and black, with his Earth Fleet badge pinned near his heart. Queen Xerentha stood at the head table. She nodded once. He walked up and sat beside her. A hush fell over the room. One noble, tall and sharp-eyed, stepped forward. "I am Lord Vexar, keeper of the Third Flame." "I've heard of you," Elias replied. "You ordered the attack on Jupiter base." Vexar smiled. "You burned my fleet well, but I do not forget." He turned to the queen. "My queen, with respect, this human should not sit beside you. His kind is chaos, his blood is weak." Xerentha's voice cut the air. "His blood saved millions. He sits where I choose." But Vexar was not done. "Then let him prove it. Let him face the right of blades." Gasps echoed through the room. Elias looked at Xerentha. She was silent. "What is it?" he asked. "A duel," she said softly. "Ancient law. You don't have to accept." Elias stood. "No, I do." He stepped forward. "Let's settle this." The arena was prepared quickly. Torches lit the circle of stone. Above, stars burned silently. Vexar entered in ceremonial armor, holding 2 long curved blades. Elias entered with a single staff and a short plasma knife. The match began. Vexar attacked fast, striking like a storm. Elias blocked, dodged, rolled. He knew he couldn't match alien strength, but he could use speed, precision. Vexar slashed. Elias ducked. Vexar spun. Elias struck his ribs. The crowd watched, breathless. Then Vexar roared and drove his blade down. Elias fell back and kicked the noble's leg. Vexar stumbled. In one smooth motion, Elias stepped in and held his blade to Vexar's throat. "Yield," he said. The noble growled, then dropped his weapons. The crowd cheered. Elias stepped back, sweating but calm. Queen Xerentha stood. "Let it be known," she said. "This human is worthy." Later that night, Elias sat in the garden with Xerentha. "You fought well," she said. The binding ceremony was set for the 7th night. For Valari tradition, this was not just a wedding. It was a sacred ritual, the merging of 2 powers, 2 paths, 2 souls. Millions across both Valari space and Earth watched the countdown on their screens. Some in awe, some in anger. But not all eyes were hopeful. Some waited in the dark, sharpening blades. Inside the spire of union, the Queen's court worked without rest. Robes were prepared, crystals were aligned. Soldiers patrolled every hallway. Even the air felt tight, like it was holding its breath. Elias stood in his chamber wearing dark ceremonial armor trimmed with silver. Lysera, the translator, stood nearby adjusting the robe on his shoulder. "You look like a king," she said softly. "I'm not," Elias replied. "I'm just the man who didn't say no." She gave him a small smile. "Still, you carry something big. Bigger than war." He looked into the mirror. "I carry Earth." Meanwhile, Queen Xerentha stood in the sacred chamber of mirrors. Elders painted her arms with glowing silver ink. Her horns were wrapped in woven light threads. She looked powerful, calm. But her heart beat faster than usual. She had been in many battles. But this was not like war. This was a leap, a risk, a door once opened that could never be closed. A priestess placed a small crystal in her hand. "Do you trust him?" Xerentha looked at the crystal. Then firmly, "Yes." Outside, far above Valari Prime, a cloaked ship drifted in silence. Inside, Lord Vexar stood beside traitors, both Valari nobles and human mercenaries. He held a device with blinking lights. "When the bond begins," he said, "we strike. A small blast to shatter the hall. Assassins will do the rest." A human mercenary asked, "What if the Queen survives?" "She won't, and neither will her human toy." The lights on the device turned green. The plan was in motion. The spire of Union glowed like a star. The hall was full. Alien nobles, human diplomats, warriors, elders, all stood around the crystal ring where Elias and Zirentha would bind their fates. Soft music filled the air. The ceiling above opened, revealing the starry sky. The stars watched too. Elias stepped forward. Queen Zirentha stepped from the opposite side. They met in the center of the ring. Two symbols, Earth's flag and the Valari sigil, floated above them, joined by a third, a glowing bond mark that flickered with both blue and violet. The priestess raised her hands. "Two paths meet tonight. War ends here. Let peace speak." Elias and Zirentha raised their hands and touched the crystal between them. It shone brightly. In that moment, something strange happened. Elias felt connected, not just to Zirentha, but to everything. He saw stars, cities, memories, both, human and alien, laughter, pain, hope. She saw him too, his battles, his childhood, his fear, his stubborn courage. Their minds brushed, and for a second they truly understood each other. Then, boom! A blast tore through the upper wall. Screams, smoke. Guards fell, lights flickered, and out of the shadows, masked attackers rushed in with energy blades drawn. "Protect the Queen!" someone shouted. Elias shoved Zirentha down behind the altar and drew a weapon from beneath his robe. A small plasma gun, hidden but ready. 3 attackers came straight for them. He fired. One dropped. The Queen spun up, her hand glowing with energy. She blasted another across the hall, but a third lunged at Elias with a curved dagger, coated in something dark. Too fast. But before the blade could strike, Lysera jumped between them. "Shink!" she gasped. The dagger sank into her side. "No!" Elias caught her, firing back at the assassin. Zirentha screamed, voice echoing with power. Her body glowed, her eyes burned like twin stars. "Enough!" She raised her hand and a pulse of pure force blasted through the hall, knocking down every attacker in a wave of blue light. The hall went still. Guards poured in, survivors were rounded up. Lord Vexar was among them, bleeding, but alive. "You dare!" the Queen growled, standing over him. "For Valari pride," he hissed. "No peace with insects." She turned away, then die in the dark. She walked back to Elias. Lysera lay on the ground, breathing weakly. Elias held her hand. "Why did you jump in?" She smiled faintly. "I believed in what you were building." Her eyes closed. Elias looked up, face hard. "We finish this. Now." With blood still on the floor, the ceremony resumed. No more music, no more lights, just silence and fire. Elias and Zirentha stood again in the circle. They touched the crystal. It glowed one final time. The bond was sealed. Cheers rose, first hesitant, then stronger. On Earth, people cried. On Valari, people knelt. Across the stars, peace had a new face. It was not perfect, but it was alive. Later, in a quiet chamber, Elias sat beside Zirentha. "I thought we lost everything," he said. "But we didn't," she replied. He looked at her. "We still might," he said. "Some people will never want peace. Then we protect it. Together." They clasped hands. Outside, stars burned brighter. War had tried to return, but love, strange, sudden, unwanted, love, had stood in its way. And won. 1 week had passed since the attack on the binding ceremony. The spire had been repaired. The traitors had been taken. Some were executed, some imprisoned. Earth and Valari both held silent funerals for those who died that night, including Lysera, the brave translator who gave her life for peace. Now peace was alive, but wounded, and Elias Rourke could feel it every time he looked in the mirror. In the high tower of Valari Prime, Elias stood on the balcony wearing his Earth Fleet uniform again. Behind him, a dozen messages from Earth buzzed on a screen. Some supported him. Some called him a traitor. But one message stood out. From Admiral Hu. Commander Rourke, the High Council is divided. Some believe the Union saved the galaxy. Others want to cancel all peace deals. You're either a hero or a mistake. Be ready. The future will test your bond harder than any war. Elias closed the message. He already knew that. He had married a queen. But more than that, he had married a planet, a people, and a fragile dream. Queen Xerentha entered quietly. You look far away, she said. I was thinking about Earth, Elias replied. They don't know what comes next. She came beside him, resting her hand on his. Neither do we. They stood in silence, watching the twin suns rise beyond the glowing mountains. After a moment, she spoke again. The traitors had help, not just from within. Elias turned to her. What do you mean? There are rumors. Someone among the humans gave them our security codes. Elias narrowed his eyes. Someone from EarthGov? We don't know. But someone wanted this union to fail, from both sides. Elias clenched his fist. Then we find them, expose them, before they light another match. Later that day, a summit was called. Leaders from EarthGov, Valari High Command, and nearby allied species arrived at the new Hall of Balance, a large dome-shaped room surrounded by open sky. Queen Xerentha sat on the high seat. Elias stood beside her. President Keen joined, them by holoscreen. His face was calm but tired. Queen Xerentha, Keen said, we grieve for the lives lost at your ceremony, but we also celebrate your courage. Thank you, she replied. He looked at Elias next. Commander, some say you crossed the line, that a soldier should not become a symbol. I didn't want to, Elias said. But when peace needed someone, I didn't step aside. There was silence. Then a voice from the Valari side. A younger noble. The peace is real. The bond was witnessed. The ceremony may have been attacked, but it was not broken. An alien admiral from another species added, if Earth and Valari can unite, perhaps others will follow. Whispers spread through the chamber. Then slowly applause began. Not loud, but steady. The message was clear. The galaxy wanted peace, even if some still feared it. After the summit, Elias and Xerentha walked through the garden where they had once spoken in secret. This time they walked as husband and wife, as leaders, but also as two people who had given everything to a future that didn't yet exist. What now? Elias asked. We rebuild, Xerentha said, and we defend what we've made. He looked at her. Together? She smiled. Always. A month later, a joint space station was launched. The Horizon Beacon, the first Earth-Valari base floating between both territories. It welcomed diplomats, scientists, even students. Inside its shining walls, humans and Valari worked side by side, laughing, arguing, learning. Some called it a miracle. Others still whispered it was a trap. But life continued. Peace held. One night, Elias stood in the station's observatory, looking out at a nebula glowing in the distance. A young Valari cadet approached him. Sir, the cadet said, is it true you fought Queen Xerentha in single combat before you married her? Elias chuckled. Not exactly. But I did fight a guy who hated the idea of us. The cadet smiled. And now? Now, people like you are why we fought. You won't have to pick a side anymore. The cadet bowed. Thank you, sir. Elias turned back to the stars. Later, in their private quarters, Zirentha lit a crystal lamp and joined Elias on the couch. I heard you told a cadet I fought. You? She teased. I said you beat me, he joked. She smirked. Wise choice. Then, more serious, she said, there's still danger ahead. Always is, Elias replied, but we'll face it as one. He nodded. And in that, cue.